when he starts to speak, of course, he needs to move further in.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to put it in the chat. Voy a ponerlo en el chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When he starts to speak, of course, he needs to move further in.
Yeah, no worries.
We're not getting it on the projection up there, right?
Hi, everyone. Okay. Let's see. I think it's better if we are all together in consumer screen because we're going to have a problem with the audio. That way, all throughout the presentations.
I will take off my sound when anyone speaks.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea, General.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We're getting a bit of echo.
Yeah.
I need to switch to live transcript. Is that correct? You are muted.
The captioner is going to take over. There's a live, if you do that, it'll be automated transcription, and we have a live captioner.
So what do I need to show? Subtitle, close full screen?
Let me see. Captioner, can you respond?
I'm sure. So you'll just click on show a subtitle, and like Brian said, there is an automatic right now, but as soon as it starts, I will take over.
No, I think we're good. Okay, so we're trying to deal with the audio, getting it up there.
Yes. We're going to up here.
Go to my audio settings.
Yeah. So yeah, you can just go to the auto settings and the.
Audio
sound.
sound.
And then just set it to that ATL. It should be there.
Okay.
You may need to set Zoom to also use that.
Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Doesn't seem to be. Is this on volume up? Okay. Maybe try Zoom. You're probably right about Zoom, meaning the preference is to be on that. There's a problem. Sometimes you need to restart it. Audio. Okay. No, there it is. Let's try. It's not letting me.
Test speed.
Okay, testing 1, 2.
Oh, hello. My name is Alica Delgado Esprio. I'm the Spanish interpreter today.
Very good.
Change volume.
Yeah. Okay.
Just wanted. Oh.
So you're getting Yvonne and Nectar, you're getting a reverb.
I know.
You know, I wonder why.
Because I was not muted.
Oh, okay, because you're in the same space?
We are in the same room, but so I will when it's not my turn. You are
Okay.
mute.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now? No, I think we're gonna have the same problem.
Alicia, I added you a Spanish interpreter on a channel, so you know.
Thank you. So I don't see it. Or
Yeah.
we need to do something.
I'm not sure. It,
Or I just
oh,
speak.
you know, you're right. It didn't stick. Let me see again.
Okay, I think it's,
Okay.
I think we got it.
Did that work?
Yeah,
Are you
that
seeing it
worked.
now, Alicia?
Not yet.
I was the problem, maybe. How is
Alicia,
it
do you
going?
see interpretation now?
No, I don't.
Huh. You know, it asks me to add. I search by name and I put your name in. Oh, I didn't add language. I see. Got it.
And you're okay there?
Okay, now you should be available. Okay, so you're silent to me now unless I were to go into the interpretation channel. That is, if I was in another language and trying to listen. You can text chat me if you have a question. Oh, they're still looking for a space. Let me try calling them again. Yeah, Jody, you know, there's the two respondents can't find parking.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, they just
Yeah, tell them
texted.
to work in any space and we'll take care of it.
They got it. They're walking here.
Jody,
Mhm.
I'm Taylor Relich. We had
Jody, long
I'm so
emailed a little
sorry.
bit.
Just
pleasure.
It's
multitasking
okay.
here.
You've been doing amazing. Yeah,
Thank
thank you so much for all the work that you've done around the events and everything.
Of course,
Yeah,
of course.
definitely.
It's easier when we have these beautiful spaces.
Good morning.
Hey, good
Oh,
morning.
I need to have spotlight.
If you
that's-
want to make me a co-host, I can work on spotlighting.
Okay, I think you are co-host. I
I'm
made,
not.
what?
I'm not.
Really?
I'm
I-
not logged into me though.
Oh, I see. A co-host, okay. Yeah, I have the spotlighting info somewhere here. Oops.
So, hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I sent a text of my presentation in English. So you will be able, the translator will be able to use it as a guide, as guidance.
You
While they're
sent it
translating into
to
Spanish.
Did you send it to the, okay,
I sent it to all.
okay.
Okay, just
If you could email it to me as an attachment, that might be faster. I'm doing a multitasking, and then I can just send
Yeah.
it to the translator.
yeah, I
Or
sent
if
it to
could Put
you.
it in the, Or if you could put it in the chat to the translator, that would be
Okay,
great.
good. Yes. I will put it in the chat.
Okay, the only difference on the agenda is we have one more respondent, Ramesh. Hello? Hello? Yes. Hi. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a meeting, so I can't. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.
It's blissful.
Yeah.
I just heard that you're gonna go.
I was going to spotlight you, but I don't see it as an option for other people.
Really? Where do you see where it is? And maybe I can try.
It's just under participant on the side under more.
Oh, okay.
That's spotlight. Okay, got this one spotlighted.
Okay, you're spotlighted.
Hey, Joe, which one is it?
So where do you? It's under more when you select a guest, or oh, I see. Yeah.
And then what do you want?
Yeah, I just added Ursula.
Yeah, but
Okay, and we have Yvonne, and then yeah. Oh, great. You should send them in. For some reason, Martha can't be
I think her
spotlighted.
video has to be on.
Oh,
Video has
okay.
to be on to do it.
Guaira, tienes que hacer tu video
which was
para que podemos hacer spotlighting. Okay.
These are all spotlighted.
So is Guaira
Hola.
spotlighted too?
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah.
Oh no, she has to
Okay,
start already.
iniciar
Guaira?
video. Sí,
Hola, güerita, ¿cómo estás?
I got it.
Oh,
Hola.
okay. Muy bien.
Hola, güerita.
¿qué tal a todos?
¿Cómo estás?
¿Está por ahí, Puangui?
Juangui.
A todos, buenos días.
Buenos dias. Oof, that echo is bad.
Thanks.
What shall I do?
Today, I was already 10 minutes late to my kid would come out of bed.
Oh,
I
yeah,
get my
classic.
beautiful camera out and the lens is cracked. It's like it's been so long.
Oh my
So
gosh.
you can't do photos.
But I'm worried if the echo is going to be on now. Suddenly now there is no echo. Suddenly there's no echo.
Yeah, because I turn everything.
Huh?
I turn off my mic.
Yeah, that really makes a big difference.
Okay, good.
But that's only when I have to speak.
Yeah.
Which is hardly any time.
I'm always amazed about how this blissful communication happens. And then all of a sudden, there's an atmosphere of confusion. Before we really. Just before, always.
Good morning, everybody. We are in the process of just resolving a few little technical things. So please hang in there. Oh, Ramesh, we need to spotlight you.
what we're seeing
Okay, very good. I think we have, oh, I'm spotlighted. Yep, I think we're all spotlighted. That's good.
like, so my worry is that we kind of mess with it.
Yeah.
Oh, we should probably put their names on the two.
Yeah, what are their, I didn't.
And
know
then
what
we've got to
their
put
names
one we should call guest and put up here and face the audience or audience. And then one is,
Okay, so one, I can rename as the audience.
hello? Hello?
The remote should be in here.
And then
Where do you want the banner?
here and here. Yeah. We just need to add your. So this is Martha Rodriguez, and that one is going to be Stan Rodriguez.
Double check I spelled that right.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Long time no see. Last time we were out in the wilderness.
So Lucido.
So this is yours,
Oh,
and you don't need to do anything. It's just so that people can see you.
okay.
Um,
I know you can see a lot of.
It's one of my production.
Okay. How you find us?
Have you found a good parking spot?
Oh.
Good deal.
Yeah. You should be good on here. You're Martha? Yes. Hi, great. Nice to meet you. I'm Taylor. And your video is, okay, it's off right now, but we're good. Okay.
Sure. That's a good idea. Okay, great. It is, yeah, perfect. Okay, good idea.
So when you're ready, remove.
So do you want view speaker? Oh, no, I see. I just do this.
Oh.
There we go. Okay. Great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A little bit.
Hey, Joe, could you lower the?
Okay, wonderful. Hey, well. Okay, I think we should probably get ready to start. People are trickling in, but we can begin the introduction. Welcome, everybody, to this roundtable discussion on co-creating an Indigenous Biocultural University of Columbia. I want to start with a land acknowledgement. The UC San Diego community holds great respect for land and the original people of the area where our campus is located. The university is built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. We acknowledge their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their stewardship. This is a hybrid event with presenters in Columbia, Zurich, and discussants here at UC San Diego and at UCLA. There'll be closed captions with simultaneous translation in English and Spanish, and there's also a translation channel. The event is open to the public, and the Zoom feed will be recorded for those who are unable to attend on the day of event. During Q&A, if you have a question and you don't want it to be part of the recording, we can edit it out, but you just need to mention it during your Q&A. A note on protocol, COVID protocol. It's a little bit confusing here on at the university, but things that are not classes or meetings, which this is not, Masks are not required, but I think they're very much recommended. I think our speakers are not going to wear them, but if you want to wear them for the benefit of others in the room, that would be great. This event is being generously co-sponsored by the Department of Communication in conjunction with the Democracy Lab and the Latin American Studies Program, the Department of Anthropology, the Education Studies Department, the Linguistics Department, Theater and Dance, Sociology, Visual Arts, Ethnic Studies, the Native American and Indigenous Studies Program, the Global Indigenous Peoples Group, the Institute for the Americas, UCSD Green New Deal, and the Nature, Space, and Politics Research Group. Additional support is provided by the Division of Social Sciences Special Initiative Funds. I also want to thank Taylor Relish, Gurley Naval, and other staff of our department who helped in the organizing efforts, and give a shout out to Jody Blanco, the Director of Latin American Studies, whose initial comments in a conversation provided the seed that germinated this event. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll use it quickly and then. I'm also.
Sorry to interrupt. It looks like there is no translation into Spanish yet, and Wyatt is asking for a translation.
There we go. I also just want to make note of an event that's also part of our Democracy Lab initiative. That's taking place tomorrow at the Digital Gym and online. If you have questions about this and you're part of the email group, you can simply email me and I'll send a blast out about this later. But it's another event related in terms of dealing with Indigenous people's sovereignty. It's part of a series that's about community-based media, and it's co-sponsored by the Digital Gym, the Critical Gender Studies Program, and the Black Studies Project. So if you're interested in that, please join. Okay. You know, this is a very exciting endeavor for me. I come at it as a person who's particularly interested in community-based education work and somebody who's been working on environmental studies in the past number of years. But it's really a very intersectional event, and it's something that I was really interested in when I when I began following Ursula Baeman's work on this. I began working on environmental communication issues. I realized that Ursula, who I've known for some decades, was doing some amazing work on this. And then a few years ago, she began this university project with the other collaborators here in the and I happened to be visiting Zurich and had a great conversation with her about it that led to this. So this project is a project taking place in Southern Colombia. The Inga Indigenous people of Colombia are initiating the project of co-creating a pluri-epistemic university in their territory. The visionary project aims to bridge Indigenous and Western knowledge systems with the purpose of fostering peace and environmental protection for the Indigenous territories in Southern Colombia. The collective creation of its political and pedagogical foundations continue a path set forth 10 years ago on the primary and secondary levels. Now they aim for a university. So I'm just going to briefly introduce the presenters and the three discussants, two of whom are here. The presenters in order of presentation are Hernando Chindoy. Since 2017, Hernando is legal representative of the territory entity AWAI of the Indigenous Inga people of Colombia, who consider themselves guardians of the earth. In 2015, he received the Ecuador Prize from the United States for all social, economic, and cultural environmental progress they had made by replacing drug production with peace crops in his Andean town, Aponte. Second presenter is Waira Jakanamijoy Mutambajoy. an Inga community leader, artist, and educator. Huayra studied ethno-education at the Pontificia Bolivariana University in Bogota. She is a leading figure in the creation of the Inga Ethno-Education Project, coordinator of the pedagogical team of the territory entity of the Inga people, AWAI, delegate for Caqueta in the National Assembly of the Inga, and long-term advisor to the Yacaicuri Educational Institution. As a media artist and former radio broadcaster, she brings cultural perspective to community strategies. Since 2009, she has spearheaded AWAI's plans to establish a higher education institution. In this partnership, she acts as representative of a team of 8 members who constitute the Inga pedagogical team. The third speaker is Ivan Vargas Roncancio. Ivan is a lawyer and holds a PhD in Natural Resource Science from McGill University. He is part of the intercultural team supporting the co-creation of the Indigenous Biocultural University led by the Inga people of Colombia, a postdoctoral researcher in the leadership for the CICADA at McGill University. And then the final speaker is Ursula Bayman, artist, researcher. Ursula Bayman is based in Switzerland and has been working in collaboration with the Inga community since 2018, bringing 30 years of experience in field-based video making, writing, and collaboration on environmental politics, post-coloniality, climate justice, rights of nature, and indigenous epistemologies. Her latest field research took her to the south of Colombia, where she is currently involved in indigenous Inga community in the co-creation of Biocultural Indigenous University that bridges ancestral and Western knowledge systems. And then we have 3 discussants. Ana Gloria, or Martha Rodriguez, who's sitting right next to me here, is from Cumaye in San Jose de la Zora. She's a community leader, a weaver, a potter, a tribal singer, and dancer, and Kosei Cumaye market curator and proprietor who promotes arts and crafts of the human tribes of the US-Mexico Southwest border region. Stanley Rodriguez, sitting 2 seats over, speaks about the, is also Cumaye and Santa Isabella. He's a community leader, professor of language, history, and culture at the Cumaye Community College, tribal singer, and maker of traditional boats, tools, and instruments. Both of them have done a lot of collaborations with UCSD. I know it's seen wonderful things that they've done. And then the third discussant is remote, and that's Ramesh Srinivasan, who is a member of the Education School and School of Information at UCLA. He speaks about the intersections of technology, innovation, politics, business, and society, and he blends his skills as a leading academic, author, engineer, social scientist, storyteller, policy advisor, and thought leader to shine light on how technology and innovation from all quarters and countries will make a balanced world possible for all. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Hector to begin. Thank you. Oh, it is paused. You're right. We will start now. Okay, well, we'll add the introductions at the time of publishing the recording. So Hector, do you want to start? I mean, Hernando, I'm sorry.
Oh, Hernando.
Listo. Ay,
We can't hear you, Hernando. Do you have your audio on?
It's muted.
No, it's not muted.
Habla, a ver si se escucha. Wangi, Wangi,
No. It's funny, we checked before.
I can hear.
Wangi.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's see if we can turn the volume up.
Okay, try that. Try again, speaker.
Que no se estaba escuchando, pero ahora sí ya.
Okay.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a esta invitación que se nos ha hecho de la Universidad de California en San Diego, Estados Unidos. Gracias a Brian, el profesor, a Úrsula por permitirnos este espacio de encuentro, a Iván que nos acompaña, a todos ustedes presentes en el espacio virtual, a Guaira, nuestra coordinadora de Educación del Pueblo Inca de Colombia. Un abrazo a todos, muy contento de estar participando en este espacio académico para poder compartir esta iniciativa que ha despertado un cierto interés muy importante en la academia y que se soporta de manera específica en dos objetivos que queremos alcanzar. Por un lado, salvaguardar los conocimientos ancestrales de nuestros pueblos para la vida y existencia física y cultural de los mismos alrededor de sus propios territorios y de la biodiversidad, tan afectados por el conflicto armado en el caso colombiano, pero también por la colonización y todo el sistema económico y de destrucción que hemos tenido que vivir. Nos parece muy importante que la educación tiene que dar una respuesta a una nueva manera de relacionarnos entre nosotros como seres humanos y todos aquellos seres que habitan la tierra, comúnmente denominados no humanos. Los árboles, la selva, las montañas, los páramos, todos los elementos que constituyen esa gran biodiversidad. La tierra está sufriendo muy fuerte, está llorando, está sangrando y nosotros necesitamos poder revitalizar estas nuevas relaciones a partir de los conocimientos propios de nuestros pueblos y de la ciencia. Por eso hemos buscado generar alianzas al más alto nivel, académico también, y aliados que desde los abuelos y abuelas también puedan abrir puertas desde el arte. Y creemos que la tierra, la vida en la tierra la tenemos que trabajar para salvaguardar todos los que estamos en este momento en cualquier parte del planeta. Los pueblos indígenas siempre hemos dado esas luchas y hoy lo que hacemos es desde estos espacios invitar a todos los habitantes de esta casa común a acompañarnos. De la mano con ello, buscamos que nuestros pueblos puedan revitalizar sus capacidades para que no sufran discriminación. El pueblo inga es uno de los pueblos que ha sufrido altamente la violencia y que según la Corte Constitucional colombiana está en vía de extinción física y cultural por el desplazamiento y por la pérdida de su territorio. Somos una población oficialmente de 19.561 personas y cada año estamos graduando en el bachillerato unos 250 a 350 estudiantes y de ellos solo ingresan entre 30 a 50 muchachos y muchachas en las distintas universidades del país, lo que significa que un alto porcentaje de ellos se está quedando sin oportunidades en los territorios y muchas veces yendo a engrosar las filas de la gente que trabaja en el narcotráfico o que son presa fácil para los actores armados o desplazándose del territorio a buscar oportunidades en las ciudades, engrosando las cadenas de miseria, lo cual es muy doloroso en un país en donde constitucionalmente se nos garantiza unos derechos que deben permitirnos vivir en dignidad. Entonces, creemos que este proceso de la universidad, como la hemos empezado denominando Universidad Indígena Biocultural Panamazónica, recoge el querer en un territorio muy rico en el sur de Colombia, pero también abraza toda la línea ecuatorial a nivel global. Y por eso es importante expresar aquí que estamos haciendo un tejido que en el idioma propio se traduce como Awai. Awai es tejer y recoger los hilos conductores de vida. Esos hilos conductores de vida que uno puede ver en el arco iris, que son perceptibles a nuestra vista, pero también aquello que va más allá de la comprensión material. Por eso se soporta en la espiritualidad. Esa espiritualidad que los abuelos y abuelas nos enseñan y se transmite generación tras generación desde la oralidad, desde el principio de la oralidad. Así que confiamos que este proceso pueda abrazar una nueva narrativa para defender la vida en integralidad y para vivir una paz biocultural. Hoy la paz no solamente tenemos que buscar defenderla y construirla entre nosotros como seres humanos. Tenemos necesariamente que armonizar la vida con los otros seres que habitamos en los territorios. Como dije, con el agua, con los ríos, con los páramos, con la selva, con las montañas, con el mar. Porque allí está la garantía de vida para nuestros descendientes, para nuestros hijos, para nuestras hijas. Así que muchísimas gracias por esta oportunidad de analizar desde la academia este proceso y confiamos en que no será la primera vez, sino el comienzo de una larga conversación en el tiempo y en el espacio hasta que se apague el sol. Un abrazo fraterno para todas y todos. Bueno, me toca bueno.
Thank you, Hernando. The next speaker is Wyra. Wyra, did you want to share screens or?
Ya.
Welcome, Myra.
No sé si están ahí visualizando un poco la...
We can see, but you're not in presentation mode.
¿Sí están visualizando? ¿Sí?
Ah,
Sí,
muy bien.
¿Ya?
perfecto.
Ok. Bueno, quiero compartir buenos días a todos y todas. Y no sé si están ahí visualizando. Bueno, buenos días a todas y todos. ¿Sí están visualizando? Sí. Ah, ya. Bueno, quiero compartir con ustedes parte de la experiencia que ha tenido el pueblo Inga en la construcción del proyecto educativo. En primer
Everyone needs to turn off their mic instead of.
Guairita, no estamos escuchando. Se ven las imágenes, pero no se escucha tu voz.
¿Listo?
¿Tienes tu audio, Guaira?
Hola, hola, ¿me escuchan?
Ahora sí.
Hola,
Ah, sí.
hola. Ya, ¿me escuchan?
Sí.
¿Aló?
Sí,
Ah,
sí se
listo.
escucha.
Bueno, no, sí, yo tengo mi audio abierto. No sé si me están escuchando.
We can hear the interpreter. We can't hear, I have my channel for interpretation on. Alicia, can you hear Wyra?
Bueno, quería
Because we're not
compartir
hearing
con
you.
ustedes.
Oh, I mean, we're not hearing your translation of what she's saying.
Es que tengo acá una repetición de la voz mía que no me deja hablar, entonces no sé qué está pasando.
Yeah. Yeah. But for some reason, I'm not hearing you.
¿Aló?
Yes.
¿Aló, Iván?
Sí, Guaira, hola. A
Dime,
ver, mira, es
dime,
que lo que
dime.
está pasando es que te escuchamos, pero hay como un eco en el lugar donde estás. Entonces, si hay otra persona que está escuchando la presentación, debe ponerse audífonos y apagar el micrófono. Si lo está escuchando por Zoom, también es por Zoom hacer eso. Si lo está escuchando por YouTube, también debe hacer eso. Porque lo que pasa es que se está escuchando tu voz y por eso tú te escuchas como en eco. ¿Sí me entiendes? Entonces, ahora si quieres habla a ver qué tal se escucha. ¿Aló?
¿Aló?
Hola, güerita. Bueno, entonces ya te escuchamos. Si quieres, sigue adelante
Ya, ya.
y ya, listo. Bueno,
Yvonne,
muchas
maybe it's that
gracias.
your audio is on.
Es
All right, I'm
compartir
gonna close my audio
pantalla.
now.
Listo, entonces, si me están viendo? No, no. Bueno, esto lo que estaba tratando de hacer es que explicar un poco sobre los componentes que tuvo el proyecto a nivel del proceso educativo del pueblo inga en Colombia. El pueblo inga en Colombia en la época de la violencia, en la época de la guerra de 2007 y bueno, hasta que terminamos nosotros en el 2012, nosotros desafiamos todo un proceso y una arquitectura que tenía Colombia, donde logramos nosotros a través de podernos encontrar como líderes, como ancianas o ancianos, como comunidades, para poder proyectarnos, uno, en el proceso educativo a través de todo un proceso de acercamiento y le venimos haciendo todo un proceso de nombres que dijimos el pueblo inga tiene que ver con todo el tema de la palabra, todo el tema del pensamiento, y entonces por eso dentro de este proceso nos dimos en la tarea de poder trabajar sobre la palabra que nos orienta, que tiene que ver con todo el proceso a nivel de nuestro pensamiento, pero también identificar como pueblo, como equipo, como comunidades, como líderes sobre la palabra que nos manda o esos principios culturales, identificar esos principios culturales que hoy en día pues nos rigen al pueblo inga. Por otro lado, teniendo en cuenta que pues que el pueblo inga a partir de todo un proceso de historia hay una normatividad que nos reconoce. Por el otro lado, también empezamos a descubrir sobre el amanecer del Inga como tal, y es lo que queríamos realmente es plasmar desde ese entonces sobre lo que queríamos lograr como pueblo. Eh, Igualmente, descubrir que cada una de las zonas en donde está el pueblo inga en Colombia tenemos una manera muy propia de organizarnos y de proyectarnos a través de las particularidades que tenemos en el contexto geográfico o en el contexto a nivel de cada una de las zonas, y eso tiene que ver con que el proyecto nos invita a poder tener un componente muy claro sobre la operatividad que el proyecto demanda o que el proyecto exige. Por el otro lado, no solamente este proceso nos llevó a decir 5 pilares fundamentales, sino que esta propuesta nos lleva a marcar un modelo muy preciso desde el pensar, desde el qué hacer, pero también desde el sentir del Inga como tal. Por el otro lado, dentro de este proceso, nosotros quisimos en sí enfatizar en, sobre la palabra que nos orienta y tenía que ver con la memoria de nuestros ancestros. Y en eso nos tenía que llevar a nosotros, en este sentido, en primer lugar, a profundizar sobre todo al interior de nuestra cultura, qué está pasando en nuestras culturas, qué está pasando en nuestro pueblo, desde las distintas realidades de cada una de las zonas. Por el otro lado, nos llevó a profundizar de esa palabra que nos orienta en memoria de nuestras mamás, en memoria de nuestros abuelos, la palabra que hoy en día nos está negando, que tiene que ver con toda esa historia y esa realidad del pueblo, con esa amnesia, que, como lo hemos llamado, la amnesia ancestral de nuestro pueblo, teniendo en cuenta que el proceso educativo en Colombia ha pasado por varias etapas. En primer lugar, una etapa de la colonia, una etapa de la evangelización, una etapa de la iglesia, una etapa de grupos armados, etapas de explotación de nuestros territorios, etcétera. Eso nos llevó a que no solamente nos vamos a quedar en estas realidades, sino cómo profundizamos en rehacer el camino en nuestras comunidades. Y esto de rehacer el camino nos llevó a nosotros realmente a poder profundizar sobre unos pilares fundamentales que tienen que ver con lo realmente cómo pensamos nosotros como ingas, los filosóficos, tiene que ver con la parte social, con la parte antropológica, con la parte pedagógica. Entonces estos pilares se hacen para nosotros un reto muy grande a nivel nacional, porque nos lleva a nosotros primeramente a identificar un equipo interdisciplinar de educación que tenga delegados de todos los territorios o de las zonas donde nos encontramos el pueblo inga en Colombia. Y de esta manera el equipo de educación empezó a formular, justamente a conocer lo de adentro de nuestra comunidad, y con la formulación de un diagnóstico. Esto nos llevó a formular realmente a través de asambleas, a través de conversatorios, a través de todos los mecanismos que nosotros como pueblo inga hemos utilizado para convocarnos, para reunirnos, a través de ceremonias y, en fin, tomas de yoko, a poder formular realmente un proyecto donde nos sentamos identificados, donde nos sentamos coherentes y pertenecientes en la formulación. Es así que después de adentrarnos en todo este proceso, desde la palabra que nos manda, obviamente que identificar todo un mandato que tiene que ver con esa integralidad, que tiene que ver con nuestra diversidad lingüística, que tiene que ver con la historia, que tiene que ver con la identidad, que tiene que ver con la solidaridad, la cohesión, que tiene que ver con toda la parte de autonomía y la flexibilidad que debe tener una propuesta, nos lleva a nosotros realmente a tener en cuenta que no solo los abuelos y las abuelas estaban dentro del marco de una historia solos, sino que este mandato y esa palabra de los abuelos se podría reconocer y se podía realmente hacer realidad, empleando sobre todo el reconocimiento del derecho que tenemos las comunidades indígenas con las normas y las leyes y los tratados nacionales como internacionales, como pueblo. Y yo pienso que al hacer ejercicio de esta normatividad nos llevó a nosotros realmente a poder proponer en el marco de las normas y en el marco del derecho esta propuesta que queda sujeta realmente, uno, al reconocimiento que tenemos nosotros como comunidades indígenas, y sobre todo en que los proyectos educativos a nivel nacional pues son proyectos que no lo puede hacer solamente una comunidad o una zona, sino que es un proyecto que se formula a través de todo un pueblo. Y este ejercicio, realmente que este ejercicio nos llevó, yo digo que en primera vez en Colombia, a poder hacer el ejercicio de reconocernos como pueblo, de hacer el ejercicio de que no solamente en una zona, no solamente en Caquetá, o no solamente en Baja Bota Caucana, o no solamente en Aponte, no solamente en Putumayo existimos los ingas, aunque son 4 departamentos que la hemos caracterizado como cuna del pueblo inga, pero que hoy en día por las distintas realidades tenemos ingas a nivel nacional como a nivel internacional. Por el otro lado, nosotros dentro de este proceso de experiencia de creación de el proyecto educativo del pueblo Inga, dentro de la palabra que amanece, identificamos qué es realmente, que fueron muchas de las preguntas en muchos de los contextos, en muchos lugares, de preguntarnos realmente qué queremos nosotros con el proceso del proyecto Inga en Colombia. ¿Qué vamos a lograr con formular un proyecto para el pueblo Inga? Entonces, este componente tenía que ver un poco en profundizar todo el tema de fortalecimiento, sobre todo el de la identidad, sobre hacer y recibir aportes, porque sabemos que el pueblo Inga a nivel interior hay que recibir aportes de los más pequeños hasta los más viejos. Entonces, este ejercicio nos llevó a profundizar en que nosotros, los que son profesionales, recibir aportes de los que no son profesionales y de los taitas que no son profesionales, dar aportes a los profesionales. Entonces, este ejercicio para nosotros realmente que fue muy, muy especial porque desde allí empezamos a seguir fortaleciendo y desarrollar las capacidades que necesita desarrollar el proyecto y capacidades que se necesita al interior de nuestras comunidades. Y al desarrollar esas capacidades tenía que ver también con cómo poder apropiar también tecnologías que nos sirvan a cada una de las comunidades que no tenemos o necesitamos. También en este componente nosotros empezamos a construir lazos de solidaridad y es justamente una constante dentro del proyecto. Los lazos de solidaridad a nivel interno como a nivel externo. Eso significa que tener, digamos, como la cohesión entre la pertenencia desde su territorio, desde sus procesos políticos organizativos, a entender otros procesos que no se entienden o que tenemos que entender como muchas cosas que, por ejemplo, los sentidos de organización que tiene el Estado o el funcionamiento de las instituciones estatales, que muchas veces no las conocemos, pero que necesitamos nosotros poder desarrollar esas capacidades para también entenderlas, pero también cómo el Estado entiende nuestras maneras propias de cohesión social y de pertenencia y sobre todo de estructura política organizativa. Por el otro lado, el desarrollo de las competencias de poder entender, uno, por las problemáticas del contexto histórico de nuestro pueblo, nuestro idioma, que hoy prácticamente en alguna de nuestras zonas, como en la zona de Caquetá, bueno, Baja Botacaucana y muchas otras zonas que hoy ya prácticamente nuestra lengua, pues ya está, digamos, es una de las lenguas que está en peligro de extinción. Sin embargo, nos ha seguido, el proyecto busca justamente desarrollar estas diferentes competencias a nivel lingüísticas. Por el otro lado, el generar capacidades a través de liderazgo y llevar todo este tema de liderazgo a poder comprender otros lazos a nivel político organizativo. Eso nos brinda a nosotros o brinda, digamos, al proceso, que es un área, digamos, en la cual tenemos como eje fundamental en todo este proceso, que nos articula o nos lleva a nosotros a fortalecernos. Por el otro lado, la palabra que nos reconoce, ya lo mencioné antes con ustedes, pero justamente dentro de este proceso quería compartir con ustedes y era sobre el tema de el componente operativo. Nosotros decíamos que en todos estos aspectos sobre la formulación del proyecto nos llevó a nosotros también a pensar sobre cómo dar operatividad a todo este proceso del proyecto. Pero fueron varios días, fueron muchos meses, bueno, no digamos que muchos años, pero pues estuvimos nosotros dándole a todo esto desde 2009 al 2012. Pero este componente operativo para nosotros fue realmente dejar algunas pistas, sobre todo para el proceso del pueblo inga en Colombia con el tema de educación, pero también la invitación que hacíamos y que recomendábamos sobre las exigencias también de estructura que tiene el Estado. Y eso tiene que ver con los ajustes administrativos, sobre todo para los departamentos y en el contexto en que hoy el pueblo inga se encuentra. Entonces, eso por un lado. Por el otro lado, tiene que ver con la infraestructura interna para el desarrollo del proyecto educativo con el modelo educativo que está planteado. Entonces, hablar de 4 ejes fundamentales que tiene el proyecto nos lleva a nosotros a pensar de cómo se implementa el proyecto en territorio y en el contexto de cada comunidad. Y eso lo dejamos claro dentro del proyecto de que debe haber un ajuste administrativo específico por cada zona y para que realmente el proyecto tenga un impacto de cambio en cada una de las comunidades que van a desarrollar el proyecto. Por el otro lado, tiene que ver con el componente operativo, tiene que ver con las estrategias metodológicas de implementación del proyecto. Y las estrategias metodológicas de implementación del proyecto educativo que tiene que ver con todo ese recorrido a nivel de pueblo, por las realidades de cada una de las zonas, que tiene que ver con un camino en el cual cada una de las zonas debemos de trazar de acuerdo a las pertinencias y de acuerdo a nuestros alcances que tengamos en cada una de las zonas. Entonces, desde ahí nosotros hemos venido tratando que en alguna de las zonas de Colombia donde estamos ubicados en las instituciones podamos realmente seguir proponiendo la implementación de acuerdo a las características particulares de cada zona. Por el otro lado, nosotros dentro de este tejido, y como lo hablaba Taiternando, este tejido de educación como experiencia nos llevó a nosotros realmente a que cada una de las zonas realmente pongamos sobre la mesa ese tejido de la palabra que nos lleva a nosotros a entender toda esa metodología de los procesos etnoeducativos del pueblo inga en Colombia. Y por el otro lado, realizar cada una de las descripciones de los ejes y proyectos con lo que contempla la propuesta etnoeducativa en este momento, como los ejes fundamentales que han dado como el horizonte, como han dado la luz a poder realmente implementarlo desde el eje de espiritualidad y medicina, desde el eje de organización social, desde el eje de los lenguajes y significados, desde el eje del territorio y la cosmovisión. Por el otro lado, de querer fortalecer esto a partir de cada uno de los ejes, las competencias interculturales con sus respectivos proyectos, con sus respectivos contenidos, y que podamos dentro de cada una de este proyecto, de cada uno de estos ejes, poder realmente realizar material educativo. Nos preguntábamos dentro de este mismo proyecto, en el ejercicio de la implementación del proyecto, de cómo van a ser nuestros educadores y cómo deben formar nuestros educadores. Yo pienso que son puntos muy orientadores para el desarrollo y la implementación de nuestro proyecto educativo. Por el otro lado, dentro del proceso que nosotros que logramos desarrollar fue justamente el modelo educativo, porque pues teníamos un proyecto. Primero hicimos un diagnóstico. Segundo, hicimos la formulación del proyecto. En tercero, realizamos la formulación del modelo educativo en el cual se iba a desarrollar el proyecto. Esto nos llevó a ¿qué? A tener en cuenta que esta experiencia está cimentada, el modelo educativo está cimentado en que está donde aprendemos todos. O sea que por eso nosotros hemos dicho que el proyecto está para seguir aprendiendo. Por otro lado, el proyecto desde el modelo permite la conexión entre el sentir, el sentir, el hacer o el quedar quieto. Entonces son dos cosas paralelas que nos llevan a nosotros dentro de ese modelo, o que nos llevan sobre todo a la reflexión y sobre todo a la acción. Por el otro lado, el modelo está cimentado en conocer, saber y pensar. Sabemos que el conocer tiene que ver con todo el proceso investigativo, el saber tiene que ver con todo ese legado desde los mayores y las mayoras, y el pensar tiene que ver con esas estrategias de la construcción del camino hacia donde queremos llegar nosotros cuando implementamos el proyecto. Por el otro lado, el sembrar conocimiento, caminos de la vida, tiene que ver con que el proyecto busca realmente empoderar a las nuevas generaciones, busca garantizar que las nuevas generaciones terminen con un proyecto de vida donde propongan realmente qué es lo que quieren para la vida. Y por el otro lado, trasciende la mirada disciplinar, o sea que nosotros reconocemos sobre los otros saberes, sobre las ciencias, y es que el conocimiento de nosotros, el conocimiento de los mayores, el conocimiento de las abuelas, también es un conocimiento que aporta a las ciencias, pero que la ciencia aporta a...
¿Puedes discutir las otras slides en el conversación para que hacer más tiempo para interacción?
No entendí bien. ¿Que comparta qué?
Dice, sí, hola, güerita. Dice Brian que si podemos compartir las otras diapositivas ya en la siguiente parte, que es más de conversación, para poder continuar con las presentaciones de los otros dos ponentes.
Ya. No, ya terminé ahí. Ya las otras, estas otras dos las dejo para cuando estemos en...
Eso. Perfecto, en la siguiente parte que es más de conversación.
Vale.
Perfecto, gracias, güerita.
Vale, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Guaira. Muy bien. Y ahora, and now we have Yvonne who's going to present, and then Ursula. Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. I think the echo is on my computer, so just.
Ursula, yo creo que va a tener que usar tu... I think I'm gonna have to...
Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay, excellent. So thank you very much for your patience. I know that technicalities of trying to converse across different technologies, different languages is always a challenge. So I commend all of us for sticking around and learning how to listen despite these difficulties. I prepared something to share with you. It's going to be in English, and I'm going to read some of it because I know that we are short on time. And I want to start by saying something in Spanish to my Inga and Spanish-speaking friends. Entonces, primero quisiera agradecer a mis amigos Inga y a los hispanohablantes que nos acompañan acá por su presencia. Para mí es un gran honor poder hacer esta presentación en su compañía. Aquí estamos algunos miembros del equipo intercultural en apoyo al proceso de co-creación de la Universidad Indígena Biocultural liderada por el pueblo Inga de Colombia, que como sabemos está basado en lo que Guaira nos presentó, que es el proyecto etnoeducativo del pueblo Inga, que empezó a pensarse desde hace mucho tiempo, pero fue empezando a amanecer desde el 2007. Entonces este ha sido un recorrido muy largo y es importante que ustedes sepan un poco ese contexto. Esta siguiente parte, que es la construcción de la universidad, está en una fase que lleva desarrollándose 3 años. 3 años en los cuales hemos aprendido a construir alianzas en distintos niveles, y esas alianzas han resultado significativas para un proceso en el cual los indígenas Inga están en la tarea de reencontrar su memoria para crear un espacio de aprendizaje, que no es solamente un espacio de aprendizaje, también es un espacio de existencia en un territorio que tiene múltiples amenazas en muchos niveles. Entonces, además de ser un proyecto educativo, es un proyecto político y un proyecto territorial. Esa es mi mirada como una persona mestiza que ha estado en la academia por varios años y que hoy quiere apenas compartir su visión dentro de este gran tejido de creación de la Universidad Indígena. So, now I'm going to, thank you for your patience, I'm going to read something that I prepared. It's not going to be long, so we can open space for Ursula's presentation and then for a conversation. So how can, I'm going to share the screen for okay.
Are you able to share screen? Okay.
Yes, I'm sharing the screen. All right. So there is a very important conceptual effort in the context of co-creating this university. And one important aspect or one key concept is the concept of territoriality. And we know that there are many visions about what the territory is. And I'm going to offer some of those images that are my interpretations of this process or this conceptual collaboration with the Inga. How can humans and territories co-create knowledge to live well together? If the mineral, plant, and animal life of the world interexist, as anthropologist Arturo Escobar reminds us, what are then our responsibilities towards this interexistence? How can modern conceptions of the territory in the Andes and the Amazon transform conventional decision-making protocols that exclusively rely on rational deliberation between humans? What follows offers a series of images of territoriality in the co-making of the Indigenous Inga University, as I said. It suggests that non-modern conceptions of the territory as a living, sentient, and cognitive assemblage are crucial elements of an ethics of living well in this region and beyond. In other words, territory is form. For example, the threads of a tapestry of liveways, as well as norm. That is, the territory can also offer a normative orientation and ethical guidance for times of planetary crisis. Based on conversations with Hernando Chindoy, Guairanina Hakanamihoy, and Benjamin Hakanamihoy, Inga intellectuals, friends, and practitioners, as well as the path-breaking El Chumbe Inga, una forma artística de conocer, de percibir el mundo, by Benjamin Hakanamihoe, an Inga artist. What follows, as I say, is an interpretation of some of these key aspects of the Inga cosmology that I consider might offer crucial conceptual guidance for the making of this indigenous biocultural university that they lead. As interpretations of evolving Inga concepts, I consider my Inga friends to be in the best position to calibrate and expand on some of these ideas as part of a Minga de Pensamiento and conceptual collaboration for the nascent university. As conceptualized and experienced by some Inga practitioners we have closely worked with, these images or metamorphoses of territoriality also imply a legal or normative guidance. To better illustrate this point, this presentation also suggests that the territory is a source of order, or better yet, a source of law, in contrast to modern proposals centered on symbolic frameworks only. The law-generating capacities of living, sentient, and cognitive territories point to what I tentatively call the legalities of the invisible, namely the idea that an ethical guidance based on ecological relations depends not only upon the integrity of the material and visible dimensions of the territory, but also on their invisible and not immediately reducible assemblages, namely spirit masters, or as the Inga of Nariño called them, huasicamas or guardians. Territory as living and cognitive, a person and a meeting place. The ancestral Inca territory is situated at the intersection of the Andean Cordillera and the Amazon Basin, encompassing the regions of Putumayo, Caquetá, Cauca, and Nariño. The forests of these interconnected regions express unique ecocultural characteristics of both the Andes and the Amazon. The Piedemonte Andino-Amazónico is considered one of the greatest sources of biophysical richness in the hemisphere, with an enormous climatic and ecosystem variability. In the Amazon alone, for example, there are more than 14,000 species of seed plants, flowering plants, and cichlids. Moreover, while the rich soils of the Amazonian slopes have favored an economy based on coffee in the Nariño region, beans in the Sibundoy Valley, and other cash crops, the Amazonian ecosystems are characterized by their fragility, as most of them are located on poor soils that are very vulnerable to rain and direct sun exposure. This means that once the forest is cut down, the fertility of these acidic and thin soils quickly depletes. However, the great biological variability and resilience of the Amazon region is not due to its soils, but to the way in which their ecosystems function in a feeding cycle of aerial and subterranean interaction of Andean and Amazonian geographies. The prevailing environmental conditions of high humidity and heat, as well as the intimate ecological knowledge and efficaciousness of indigenous territorial governance systems. The territory, however, exceeds this biophysical dimension. For Inga political leader and intellectual Hernando Shindoy, who you just have heard, for example, the territory is mother, our mother, and the sun is father, our father. The condor, the tapir, and other beings are members of our family, and the territory is our home. Quote, when I plant corn, when I cultivate the chagra, which is a small food garden, I can't sow only for my family, for me, for my wife and children to have food. When there is a harvest, the deer, the tapir, the turkey, the parrots will come to harvest this corn and those beans as well. The territory then is people, or better yet, a multitude of persons arranged as a socio-ecological kinship. A well-known image, these local articulations of territory as people vary across the Andean Amazonian ethnographic record. Furthermore, the territory is a meeting place, a meeting point. Hernando says that one Inga family in the Sibundoy Valley told us that to put up a fence means to divide. From this point here to this fence over there, you command, you are the owner. And from that fence over there to where I stand here, I am the owner. I am in charge, and no one is allowed to enter without my permission. However, those limits that we were taught to think of as barriers for our cultures and communities are in fact not lines that divide, but meeting points, points of encounter between different beings, says Hernando, standing on a rock next to a stream that runs across the territory of a recently founded Inga Cabildo in Mocoa. These Cabildo groups together dozens of Inga families forcibly displaced from their ancestral lands in the neighboring region of Huila. Intriguingly, a black jaguar was spotted a few days later in that very meeting point where Hernando was standing. The territory, therefore, is not only people, but also a meeting point. It is a place where lifeways meet and cross each other, forming a living tapestry. As some of us might be familiar with, anthropologists, Tim Ingold defines a way of life as the trajectory of movement and growth of all beings. Every being is instantiated in the world as a path of movement along a way of life, he says. And these paths or lines form a tapestry of convergent lifeways that he calls a meshwork. To further clarify this notion, Ingold contrasts the meshwork with the idea of network, which represents the interconnection between pre-existing entities in space. Ingold notes that what is commonly known as the web of life, that is, the material relationships between organisms in an ecological community, is not a network of interconnected points, but a meshwork of interwoven lines, making up a place. For example, winding rivers, growing plants, moving other than human animals and humans, and even language are all ways of life or trajectories of growth and movement, relentlessly co-emerging. For Hernando, to be sure, this meshwork of lifeways express both a sense of movement and direction, as well as a state of rest or a meeting point to learn something new about a place. The black jaguar, he says, that inhabits these sacred points between the Andes and the Amazon is the spirit of protection who day by day safeguards this region. The jaguar, our most powerful wasikama, as he calls it, or guardian, is the protector of the ancestral knowledge of the Inga people. This territory has the form of a jaguar in a state of samai, Hernando says, at rest, and that is why the black jaguar is a very important symbol of knowledge, protection, and harmony. Having the color of the soil, el color de la tierra, that sustain our lives, this territory is embraced within the spirituality of the black jaguar, who is the wasikama maximus of these sacred, strategic, and emblematic territories. As people and meeting place, the territory moves and also she rests. First, the territory is motion in two distinct ways. Insofar as humans are territorios que respiran y caminan con dos piernas, territories that breathe and walk into legs. Territory moves, for example, when the human roams through the forest to hunt and collect wild seeds to sow in the chagra, as well as when this same chagra co-shapes the forest as it successionally moves to another plot to allow the previous one to rest, regenerate, and make the forest anew. Secondly, when the territory rests, humans can also see other facets of the real beyond the physicality of their own experience. And these facets or dimensions are not always visible and often require the mediation of powerful beings such as plants. For Hernando, the territory encompasses visible and invisible realms moving together as a tapestry. And as a Inga Yacha or traditional knowers said it, para aprender hay que quedarse quietico, quietico. Plants teach these other layers of the territory the naked eye cannot see. Furthermore, Hernando poetically describes the territory as a green dress, el vestido de la tierra. This green dress is composed of all the plants, the leaves and trees, and between them and the soil, there are many connections. We humans destroy this dress. In times of deep separation and socio-ecological crisis, Hernando points out, it is important to reconnect with the forgotten principle that teaches that all forms of life are sentient and are family, and they deserve to live. When the abuelos teach us how to intake the medicine, is referring to the sacred plant of ayahuasca or yahe, They also teach us that the divine gives that connection across time and space. When you look down from the sky, this very stream is also like a hair, he says. If there is a snowy mountain, if there is a lagoon above, those are like the eyes of the territory that are watching over us. They communicate with the rest of the family. The jaguar, the tapir, the plants, everything talks, everything connects, nothing is separate. The territory, as this territory as people and meeting place, is simultaneously singular and multiple. Territory is an assortment of persons in relentless continuity of communication and metabolic exchange, whose reality and meaning one can only amplify by ingesting the Yahe concoction. A person can learn about this multitude of people in the territory as they make territory by practicing in the modes of emergence, participating in the modes of emergence of this complex self through labor, care, and ritual. The territory is like one body, he says. If something smashes one's toe, one feels even in the hairs in one's head, like an electric shock. If something happens in your head, even your toenails will feel that pain, wouldn't they? What happens in one place can be felt in others, and this sense of interconnectedness spreads across different life forms, while forming the territorial body simultaneously multiple in her life ways, and singular in her modes of emergence, oncoming or coming into being. Having discussed some images of Inga territory, I want to move on to analyze how a territory that cannot be mechanistically reduced to its physical parts is organized to live well together. I will try to focus our discussion on one of the multiple ontological dimensions of this issue, the relationship between territory and time. I just wanted to know if, how we're doing on time, because precisely I wanted to talk about time, but I want to know if we have enough time. If we don't, then I can gladly stop and open and continue with Ursula's presentation.
Yeah. Why don't you take another 5 minutes and then
Okay.
have Ursula's, and because we have the respondents as well. Yeah.
Okay. No, in that case, I would prefer, because I'm aware that we are 8:14 and that then we have Ursula and then the respondents. So I'll be happy to continue the conversation. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Ivan. Ursula?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Brian, for giving us this opportunity to dialogue with various communities in San Diego, with their artistic, indigenous, academic, political. So you might wonder how I got involved in this project as a Swiss artist based here in Zurich. And I just want to offer some thoughts about from a personal perspective. I had the opportunity to meet Hernando Chindoy shortly after he became the leader of the Inga people about 4 years ago. And when we were on a field trip together for 4 weeks through the territory, at the end of this trip, Hernando asked me if I would help him set up an indigenous university in the Inga territory. The idea was to strengthen ancestral knowledge and to collaborate with Western sciences where they proved to be compatible and ecological. The project struck me immediately as very interesting, as it supports the much needed paradigm shift from an extractive to a more generative and caring interaction with the natural world, which is something I have been working on for several years. Research and education plays, of course, a central role in this paradigm shift. Given the dwindling global biodiversity, Western universities would do well allowing for a greater epistemic plurality, a greater diversity of knowledge at this time, because ancestral knowledge of the forest is critical for the survival of the forest. biodiversity and epistemic diversity have co-evolved over millennia. They have completely entangled, so much so that if one dies, the other one disappears as well. It is a biological as well as a cultural issue. So I gladly accepted the invitation to collaborate with Hernando on this project. I should say that I don't consider myself a community art practitioner. That is, I do not approach communities to propose a collective action of sorts. I see my video work as a form of world making in and of itself. But I said yes to this invitation because I saw it as a chance to root my practice more firmly in the material world. And I was really touched by the idea that considering all the violence, political and economic pressure the Inga are facing on a daily basis, they decided that it is a university that will make the crucial difference. The first thing Hernando and I did was hosting a 4-day meeting in the territory in Mocoa, in the Putumayo. We invited many Inga social and educational leaders, some Inga youth, and several traditional medics from other indigenous communities. We also invited a number of potential academic partners, scholars who had already worked in the indigenous context in Colombia, like Ivan Vargas. We spent 4 intense days thinking together about an indigenous university that would embody the value and cosmology of the Inga people, while at the same time taking advantage of Western science to support their vision. In the beginning, it was most important to forge good partnership. And the first solid partnership came with ETH, the Swiss Institute for Science and Technology here in Zurich. Renowned architect Anne Lacaton committed to running a 2-semester studio on the new Indigenous University in the rainforest. Anne agreed to do it under the condition that they would not design to build in Colombia. Instead, the studio proposed a range of concepts of the university as a territorial system of sites. It wouldn't be a central campus, but a network of different sites, facilities, or buildings in different zones of the territory. These designs should help the Inga to reflect on various criteria rather than move to construction right away. To create a university involves so many domains, forging partnerships with other universities in Colombia and internationally, building a curriculum, negotiating with the ministry, preparing the ground, getting titles for collectively owned land, planning the territorial layout and the architectures, recruiting, running pilots. Many of these activities happen parallel to one another. We have formed a group of 6 academics from different fields: anthropology, education, law, architecture, and art, who since Mocoa continue to support the university project in various ways. We hold meetings with the Inga education team. We hold field workshops in the territory to socialize the ideas. We write grants for foundations to support our intercultural research practice partnership for the development of a form of education that is place-based, pluriepistemic, and ecocentric. We were quite a big group by then in the field. We advanced on many fronts, but the question remained, what can an artist do in all this? How can I contribute my particular skills and experiences to this great endeavor of creating a unique kind of university that would radically rethink scientific philosophy and methodologies. The role that I define for myself, and that comes closer to my usual function as an artist, is that of becoming an aesthetic companion to the project, documenting, reflecting, visualizing, and projecting the process that is creating an intellectual and aesthetic memory of the collaborative process. We call this part of the project Devenir Universidad. It's a collaboration with a group of academics and some key Inga people, which also enjoys the support of the Art Museum, who initially commissioned this work. The initiative needs to be communicated among the Inga, as well as to a global community in the arts, architecture, and the academy. Above all, it needs a very strong online presence. At the Vienna Biennial for Change of the Museum of Contemporary Art, we made a joint presentation with Studio Lacaton, as well as the French Pavilion. And here at the Venice Biennial, so we are kind of appearing also in various academic and art contexts. I want to emphasize that Devenir Universidad is not the website for the future university, which will be called the Biocultural Indigenous University. Rather, Devenir Universidad is a place to document the process of becoming university. And that which is becoming university is not so much the Inga people, but the territory, the living cognitive territory that is intelligent and sentient. Part of Devenir Universidad is building a video archive for the Biocultural University once it is operational. In an oral culture, video can become an important carrier for memory and knowledge. A major task in the protection of an endangered culture consists in establishing a living audiovisual archive of the voices of the elders, healers, social leaders, traditional medics, and other forest beings. Together with Vaira and Flora, we will exhibit these videos at the Istanbul Biennial this fall. The archive holds many voices who remember the territorial history, how the missionaries came to re-educate them, how their ancestral land was rapidly sold off to large cattle farmers or licensed to oil and mining companies. But there is also the memory of the knowledge of plants and the wisdom of life. And this knowledge, whatever remains of it, needs to be protected because it is tied to the biodiversity of the forest. Every time a Taita dies, a whole library of knowledge is effaced. The Taitas are aging. Taita Paulino here just died last January. They each have an individual treasure of knowledge that is not shared with a large number of community members. I have shown a lot of images so far. Image making plays an important role in the research of the living cognitive territory and in the project of creating the Biocultural University. Images are not merely depicting already existing realities. They contribute to reality making, to world making. This concept of image making is vital for a project that assembles undocumented histories and memories, engages with non-human actors, performs a deep description of the territory, and generally creates a new knowledge organization from scratch. Images transport knowledge in more than textual or purely cerebral ways. Artistic communication also implicates emotional, sensorial, spiritual, and physical experiences. I'd like to give you a few examples, but I think that we could end here for the benefit of having a much longer discussion, because I'm anxious to hear and get feedback and hear from the community in LA, San Diego. So I'll stop sharing here and I give over the floor.
Thanks so much, Ursula, and thanks to all of the presenters from the Bupanlinga University. I'm going to pass it on to Martha to be the first discussant.
Okay, the pajama. Hello? 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 No, I think it's working now. Can you guys hear? Oh, okay, the pajama. I'm Martha Nishi. I'm Matperhao Kopai. Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Gloria Marta Rodriguez. It's an honor for me to be here with you guys, sharing and listening about Colombia and the natives over there. Oh wow, it's just very happy to be here with you guys. And thank you, Brian, and thank you everyone over here too for being today with us. Amy and Lisa, I know she's there. And then nice to meet you, everyone. I saw the movie. I really like it, and then it's just amazing. I want to go to Colombia now. I want to go to Colombia and see you guys over there. But yeah, same thing over here with the Kumeyaay Nation. You know, we're working very hard to keep the language and the culture alive. And so listen to you guys. I was just thinking, I'm like, you know, we're doing the same thing over here, you know, trying to keep it going with the culture and the language. So yeah, we have Stan over here. He can talk more about all the stuff we're working on as the Kumeyaay Nation, land preservation, the language and the culture and the art, you know, the arts and craft. So all this stuff, but yeah, so I will pass it to Stan. Yeah, Han, thank you. Come on.
Mayepa. Ajá.
Think so, yeah.
¿Te escucha? Sí, no, más o menos. Ajá. Acá peña mate pecham. Estaba en hecho en macopa busconan. Pele helicoy, ya voy yupi, ya canap. Canap niepchas. Mamble marar. Ahorita yo soy muy feliz porque nosotros estamos aquí por esta junta. Perdóname, yo no hablo español bien, yo hablo muy chueco, pero no ya sé. Yo soy indio, con orgullo. Y cuando nosotros hablamos de estas cosas, ustedes saben, el camino a nosotros, muchas veces por la nación indígena, muy difícil, porque mucha gente quiere robar el terreno, el idioma, cultura, todo es nosotros, pero nosotros necesitamos sigan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stan Rodriguez. I am Ipai Kumeyaay from the Santa Isabel Reservation here in San Diego. And it's an honor for me to be here. I'm also the director of Kumeyaay Community College. It's a tertiary institution. We are the only operational tribal college in California that offers an accredited associate's degree. We're working on developing an accredited bachelor program. And first of all, I want to thank the speakers who have shared before it really touched my heart. Your struggles, everything that you're going through. And you were telling us about the numbers. Our people, the Kumeyaay Nation, we are a nation on both sides of the border. Half of our nation is in the United States in San Diego, and the other half is in Baja California and Mexico. The international border has cut our nation in half, and it's like a pot that's just been shattered, where each community has a piece of our culture. Some have more basket makers, some have more language speakers, but it's shattered, and it's difficult to go back and forth to share our knowledge with each other. And you were talking about your nation. With ours, there's approximately 4,623 Kumeyaay who reside on both sides of the border. Of that 4,623, there's approximately 31 who still speak the language. So under the UNESCO 9 factors of language vitality and endangerment, 5 being stable, 0 being extinct, ours is listed as 1, which is critically endangered. So I hear what you're saying. And language and culture support each other. You can't have one without the other. It breaks it apart. And the vibrancy of a language is measured not by how many of the adults speak, but how many of the children speak. If you have none of the children speaking the language, then your language is in danger of going dormant. So here, what we've been doing is we've been working on how to reverse language shift. Also, bringing back our organic scholars, as you said, the elders who have this knowledge, because it is true. Each one of those elders is like a library of knowledge. And when they pass, that library burns. And if they do not have a book, an apprentice that learns from them, that information is in danger of being lost. We say knowledge without sharing is not really knowledge. And it's important that we share that within our communities. We share our culture in our community, our language, our songs, our creation story, all these things, our spirituality. It is so important because when we talk about the relationship that we have with the land, with the ocean, with the mountains, with all these, all these different parts, many people don't really understand what is in our heart. I'll put this question to all of you. Where is the Holy Land at? Some people say Jerusalem, Bethlehem. No, not for us. This is our Holy Land. Each mountain has a story. The ocean has a story. The trees have a story. All these things are part of the story, and we are part of it. We were not created to rule it, but to be part of it. And that is something that is foreign to many Western scholars. They tend to view all of this through a myopic lens, and they have difficulty seeing things through an indigenous lens. So they tend to discount us, they tend to marginalize us. And our history has been discounted. So by starting our own university, our own tribal college, we're teaching our history, we're teaching our language, we're teaching our philosophy. These are things that are important for our communities. Here in the United States, there are 12 Kumeyaay communities, 12 reservations. In Baja, Martha disagrees with me. She says 4, I say 6. But the thing is that if we are separated and we are not allowed to come together and share our knowledge, then due to diaspora, it's going to just blow away into the wind. But when we come together as one and we share this knowledge, it becomes stronger. It's like planting the seed. You put that in the ground. You need to water it. You need to nurture it so that it does grow. So I just wanted to say, I commend you on your work in starting an Indigenous university. And me, I just want to say, I've been given the honor to be the director of Kumeyaay Community College. I would totally welcome collaboration between your work and what we do here in the United States. And as Martha said, maybe we can all just go down and meet you, or you can come on up and, hang out with us. ¿Usted puede hablar español? Sí, no, más o menos. Claro, cómo no. Entonces vamos a Tijuana. Vamos a México. ¿Está bien? Voy a pescar. Ándale, pues. Okay, so, and for all of you, I mean, this is a project that's multifaceted in approach. We have to view it through many different lenses in order to make this happen. It's going to take a whole group to bring this to fruition, and and it's important that we support each other. Last thing I want to say is everybody in this panel, everybody in this room, we're all indigenous from somewhere. We're all indigenous from somewhere. But if we do not understand our culture, we do not understand our language, we do not speak our language, we as indigenous people, we know we're dying inside. Other people that have lost it or just given it away, they're dying, they just don't understand it. They don't see it. And that's one thing that we can teach. That's one thing we can show. And the last thing I'm going to say before I shut my snoot is that when we come together and we celebrate that diversity. We celebrate, you're coming from the Amazon and that knowledge, that epistemology, your organic scholars, all these, we celebrate that knowledge and we bring that with other knowledges together. We're all strong. We're all strong. Not tolerate, but celebrate. So I just want to share that. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Stan. I really appreciate that last comment about us all dying. Well, not all, those dying without knowing. I'm going to pass it over to Ramesh for the last comments and then open it up to everybody, including those who are remote, who can ask questions in the chat.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for having me. And thank you all to all of you, wonderful, wonderful colleagues and sources of inspiration for having me join you all today. Voy a decir algunas palabras en español, hablo también español. Es una gran bendición para estar con ustedes, con ustedes y me siento muy cerca a todos ustedes, ¿sí? Y su energía, la energía colectiva es muy poderoso para nosotros. Bueno, I'll speak in English a little bit. So I've known Brian for many years. I'm a professor at UCLA, and more importantly than that, even though I love Brian, I've had a history over decades of working with and learning from indigenous peoples and communities in North America, in India, in South America, currently in Mexico and Oaxaca, and even in East Africa as well. And I'm a scholar who studies the increasing threat that corporate, private-driven, Western neocolonial technologies are posing on our ways of living and our ways of knowing, our collective ontologies, our ways of relating to and building bridges with one another. And in this sense, I would say, philosophically and conceptually, we can really think about a world that is bordered, on the one hand, versus a world which is built upon relationality, which is, a term that I've heard multiple times this morning, where we think about lines of circulation, lines of connection. That doesn't mean we're all the same, but it means we connect with one another based on who we are and where we are. And the reason why that is such an important theme in relation to the topic of today is because increasingly technologies, as we all know well, are algorithmically, biometrically, in terms of surveillance practices, in terms of data hoarding and attention sort of monetization, are dividing us. We're being placed in our own silos as psychographic subjects of manipulation and disciplining, to go straight back to Foucault here. So the question and the vision that I feel is really coming out here, I'm very inspired by learning about this biocultural university today, and the courage and the beauty and the power and the collective solidarity of the Inga people of Colombia is a different kind of vision. As Subcomandante Marcos used to say from the Zapatistas, otro mundo es posible. Another world is possible. But what is that world? That's a world built upon the values, the belief systems, the traditions, the practices, and the ways of knowing and the ways of being that come from communities and that emerge out of that space to teach us all a lesson around the world, and honestly, to teach a lesson fundamentally to those driving this technological world those driving Western neo-colonial practices that have come to dominate, extract, and exploit our precious planet and our peoples and their diverse voices and values. I've had experience, many years ago. It's so beautiful to meet you both, Stan and Martha, working with, and I remember Brian, I met back in these days when I was a graduate student, living and working with Kumeyaay elders, with Jane Dumas, God bless, building networks as an engineer, as a nerdy engineer, building networks with and by and for communities, and not writing about Native peoples, but writing about how Native peoples can teach us to transform our technological world. And I also had some experiences working with the Zuni, who for many years taught me a lot about what they called the middle way, being of the world, but from who we are and where we are. We are the new point of centrality. That's what my friends at Zuni would tell me for many years, and I learned those lessons from them. And I currently do fieldwork, as I alluded to, in the Oaxaca region. And out there are incredible initiatives underway. For example, close to Oaxaca in Chiapas, right outside of San Cristobal de las Casas, is the Universidad de la Tierra, which is a universidad that comes straight out of Zapatismo, right? And hay muchos talleres, there's many workshops, it is really about reviving people in places in various communities. So the reason why I want to say all of those things is because what you all are creating together and what we're merely trying to support here from these Western elite neo-imperial institutions is a whole other vision. A whole other vision, quite honestly, that, yes, rooted in Colombia and the traditions of the Inga people and your communities, and most importantly, the relationships between relationality, the relationships we have with one another, but the relationships we also have with other sentient beings, which is a term I heard a couple times. I personally am a Buddhist, and we talk a lot in Mahayana Buddhism about sentient beings. But I would also argue one thing that I've deeply learned from working with indigenous peoples is the relationship between things as well, right? Things that might be treated as inanimate from Western lenses have great amounts of meaning. We were just hearing about the sacredness of mesas, for example, or mountains that you were just speaking about, Stanley. So there's a sort of new world that is possible here that's unfolding right in front of us. And I want us to really think about that vision of a world where borders don't restrict and dominate and incarcerate racialized bodies, women, LGBTQ peoples of the global south, where we see migrants unable to get to Europe in the Mediterranean, where we see the brutal treatment of peoples of the Americas in the United States southern border. But another world is possible, one where there is circulation, fluidity, and movement. And those forms of circulation and fluidity are determined by our relationships with one another. And so the fundamental and such important, and I deeply respect, practice and possibility that's emerging right in front of us, which is why I asked Brian, hey, I'm so excited, I got to get involved. Like, is there any way I could just learn from all of this? Is what you all are doing right here, So please consider me and those of us I can rally at UCLA or across the UC system here to support you all and learn from all of you and be there in a space of solidarity and love and collectivity. So I'll just end with those few words and say my gratitude for inviting me to join you all this morning. Mucho gusto.
Thanks, Ramesh. And I want to express my gratitude to this collective group for all that you've offered so far. It's been fabulous. Now, I know in various versions of the announcement of this meeting, it either ended at 12 or 12:30, typical of my fickle organizational abilities. So we have some flexibility. I'm also trying to be cognizant of the time of people in Zurich who are probably getting hungry for dinner or whatever. So maybe, depending upon how much people have in terms of questions, we can go over past 12 a little bit so that there's, a little bit more time. We'll we'll see. I know Ramesh has to hop off at noon. He agreed to join us at the last minute, so I'm really appreciative that he was here and could stay just till noon at least. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor and open up the chat visually so that people from the audience online can join us as well. But if people here would like to join and ask a question, there's a computer up at the podium where you can just come up and speak to the group. So please, questions or comments. Oh, just some appreciation signs. Well, while people are getting up their minds together to ask questions, I'll ask one to start, which is many of you talked about the real need, the pressure to create continuity with forms of knowledge that's endangered, that's being lost. But I also know that a large part of this project is about bridging and also about newly emerging knowledges amongst these communities, how to and these are not separate, face the current emergencies. So I'm wondering if you might talk about some of the challenges the group has had, and this goes out to all the 4 members of the project, as well as the discussants who are doing it here, with trying to integrate, you know, as you say, in the general term, Western knowledge, Western scientific knowledge, with the scientific knowledge of the Inca people, et cetera. And anybody can answer, just throwing it out there.
Yo creo que quería preguntar, Guaira, si quieres ofrecer una visión sobre el proceso también, aprovechando esta pregunta. I just wanted to ask Guaira if she wants to join us with this question speaks to the issue of trying to integrate
Guaira,
different
yes.
knowledge traditions. So Guaira was in.
Ya, venga. Ya. Ya.
Hola, Guairita. ¿Nos
¿Qué
escuchas?
tal? Sí, te estoy escuchando. Entonces la pregunta es sobre la visión.
¿Cómo el reto, sí, la visión y también el reto de integrar distintas tradiciones de pensamiento?
Well, the question.
If you want to go, yeah.
Ya, bueno, esto justamente es una pregunta que nosotros también a nivel interno como pueblo nos ha llevado a replantearnos en el sentido en que estos retos y estos desafíos que el pueblo Inga hoy tiene dentro de su proceso, por una parte tiene que ver con uno en que sabemos que la comunidad Inga, a pesar de que estamos dispersas en Colombia, yo pienso que pensar en que los jóvenes, en que los líderes tenemos que unirnos para discutir realmente cuál es el devenir de la universidad que queremos. Porque aunque la universidad, la propuesta se han hecho investigaciones, se han podido avanzar en algunas cosas de investigación desde el lado de fuera, desde el lado occidental, desde la cátedra, desde la universidad. Pero el pueblo Inga nos queda todavía la tarea de sentarnos a formular cuál va a ser la propuesta de la universidad, teniendo en cuenta que hemos adelantado un proceso de educación a nivel con el proyecto educativo, que ya es prácticamente un punto de partida para poder nosotros tener ya bases fundamentales. Hay un desafío grande y es que hay que empezar a estudiar estos principios que iniciamos del pueblo inga a un nivel de formación superior. Aunque ya tenemos pilares fundamentales que nos pueden ayudar a ver el, el porvenir o el devenir de la universidad, nos toca a nosotros seguir pensándonos realmente cuál va a ser la universidad que queremos en los contextos que tenemos. ¿Alguien me está llamando? No. Y en ese sentido,
You were mentioning young people. Oh, you were mentioning young people, and I was wondering, you know, traditional Western universities and academic academies have a particular sense of what their constituents are, what their audience is, and it's very segregated by age. And I'm wondering, in developing this university, how much you're thinking beyond those concepts to think about intergenerational, a university that's intergenerational, that may involve younger people than our universities often do.
Nosotros, en el caso del proyecto educativo, nosotros hemos trazado 4 ejes fundamentales y hemos dicho por ciclos. Eso desde la formación, desde la primaria, la secundaria, y nos tocaría realizar también un estudio a través de los ciclos y de las edades. Pues nosotros decimos que el proceso educativo es todo un proceso para toda la vida. Entonces, de esa manera, pensamos en que mirar los ciclos que nos van a ayudar a mirar las edades. Entonces, desde ahí, pues eso es también un proceso que también tenemos que primeramente entender el proyecto educativo a partir de realizar el contexto, de mirar el contexto a nivel nacional desde la profundidad, pero desde cada una de las zonas. Entonces, nosotros dentro de este proceso para la formulación del proyecto educativo, nosotros miramos sobre los niveles de formación, por ejemplo, a través de pilotajes, mirar que el tema de formación superior también necesita realizar esos pilotajes, tener esos ensayos, pero en primer lugar, darle viabilidad realmente a la identificación de un equipo interdisciplinar, que nos encarguemos de la discusión de toda la universidad, empezando a poder revisar y coger lo que ya hemos construido. En este momento, el proyecto educativo del pueblo inga se convierte en el indicador sobre cómo podemos formular realmente la propuesta a la universidad. Entonces, ahorita tenemos preocupación, y es que no hemos podido a nivel interno abrir esos espacios por las distancias, por miles de razones. El pueblo inga necesita realmente discutir sobre la formulación de la propuesta de la universidad con un equipo de alianza que nos ayude a, por lo menos, a asesorarnos, sobre todo en asesoramiento, pero los que tenemos que discutir son realmente nuestras comunidades, nuestras poblaciones, para saber cómo hoy en día queremos la universidad con las realidades que tenemos en Colombia. Sabemos que tenemos, por una parte, universidades que funcionan en privado, por otra parte, universidades que funcionan como público. Entonces, desde ahí nosotros tenemos que asegurarnos de para dónde queremos ir con esta universidad. Sabemos que hemos alcanzado y que a través de la gestión, a través de las alianzas que se han venido creando, se ha podido tener unas alianzas a través de algunas universidades, pero todavía no sabemos cuál es el papel de cada uno. Entonces, en esto hay unos desafíos bastante grandes porque la formulación de la propuesta del nivel superior pues debe estar clara un poco para nosotros. Yo pienso que ya estamos en el momento en que debemos nosotros, el pueblo inga, si la universidad es para los ingas o si la universidad es para, pues para todo el mundo, ¿no? Y eso me parece muy bien con los aportes que ustedes han dado, que de mirar todos los horizontes, la inclusión como tal, la inclusión desde las mujeres, los niños y todo. Yo pensaría que eso sería un aporte muy importante y que tenemos una tarea grande aún. Muchas gracias.
Muchas
Thank you, Wyatt. That was
gracias.
very insightful.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias por las respuestas que ha dado nuestra compañera Guaira desde su coordinación de educación del pueblo inga de Colombia. Respecto de las preguntas, quiero manifestar las siguientes situaciones. Primero, Colombia efectivamente es un país en donde la discriminación es muy alta. En materia educativa, prácticamente los pueblos indígenas y las comunidades rurales no tienen la posibilidad de acceso a la educación superior. En segundo lugar, se trata de garantizar la educación para pueblos indígenas con un solo cupo o máximo 2 cupos por carrera en las distintas universidades públicas. Pero eso no es suficiente. Y adicionalmente, ya hay mucha competencia entre los mismos indígenas para acceder a esos cupos que se conocen como cupos especiales dentro de las universidades. Lo segundo que quiero expresar aquí es que, como ya lo ha comentado nuestra compañera Guaira, el pueblo inga ha desarrollado efectivamente un proyecto denominado etnoeducativo del pueblo inga de Colombia. Este proyecto se ha aplicado dentro de los territorios y se desarrolla dentro de los territorios del pueblo inga en lo que corresponde a la educación primaria y de bachillerato, pero no se ha dado un salto hacia la educación superior y por eso nuestros jóvenes, cuando terminan el bachillerato y entran a la universidad, el proceso de educación propia ya no continúa, ya queda hasta allí. Y eso es una gran debilidad porque al final nuestros jóvenes lo que terminan reproduciendo dentro de nuestras comunidades al interior de los territorios o por fuera es lo que finalmente aprenden en la universidad. Y muchos también de nuestros estudiantes terminan su carrera universitaria, pero terminan quedándose en las ciudades porque el sistema formativo de las universidades no da la posibilidad de que los estudiantes puedan volver a sus territorios. Y eso es muy delicado y por eso mismo los territorios están quedando con presencia de población mayor, porque los jóvenes están siendo desplazados. Ellos se van en busca de oportunidades y la misma universidad en últimas es cómplice de esos desplazamientos. Entonces, desde luego que nosotros hemos dicho que la ciencia desde Occidente debe articularse con las realidades concretas de los pueblos indígenas y de las comunidades rurales, de las comunidades que han sido fuertemente maltratadas o que no se les ha garantizado sus derechos a educación. Particularmente en la zona sur del país, especialmente en el departamento del Putumayo, solo hay un proceso de universidad técnica, no hay nada más. Todos los jóvenes están yendo a distancias que son mínimo 8 horas de viaje por carretera y hasta 3 días de viaje por carretera para ir a entrar a una educación superior. Entonces, nosotros concebimos que este proceso de universidad efectivamente va a abrazar el conocimiento occidental, pero tiene que ayudar a que los jóvenes, hombres y mujeres, en el territorio, sin irse del territorio, puedan desarrollar sus capacidades y puedan resolver con fórmulas que se revitalicen con los saberes propios y con los saberes externos para poder dar respuesta a las distintas dinámicas de vida que hay allí. Por eso hablamos de universidad-territorio. Por eso nosotros no concebimos una universidad donde se construye una infraestructura para que los estudiantes se los tenga como enjaulados allí o tengan que concentrarse allí, sino que los estudiantes siguen estando donde están las comunidades. Y ese es un reto que tenemos y ese es como hacia donde seguramente hacemos la invitación a todos y todas para que nos ayuden a que eso sea así, se materialice dentro del territorio, porque las comunidades, los pueblos indígenas, andamos juntos entre gente y biodiversidad, entre gente y territorio. Y eso creemos que es muy importante para salvaguardar esa gran biodiversidad. Como saben, Colombia es uno de los países más importantes en biodiversidad y entre ellos pues, los pueblos indígenas son parte de todo ese tejido. Así que los conocimientos deben ayudar a, por eso decíamos al comienzo, a fortalecer la vida y esa paz biocultural que es tan necesaria en los actuales tiempos.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat from Sarah Mike's Espinosa. I'll read. Pregunta, ¿cómo se pueden navegar los compromisos de las alianzas? Por ejemplo, you know, yeah, why don't I let you directly read from the chat and translate? Yeah.
Just wanted to ask, Brian, are you referring to the question, the last question of the chat by Sarah? Are you referring to Sarah's question or to other? Because there was a bit of a, we couldn't hear what it was said.
Are you speaking, Yvonne? I don't.
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Not hearing you.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yes. Okay. No, I was just asking if the question was is the one that Sarah Mike sent in the chat.
Yes, that's the question. Did you want to answer?
Okay. I'm gonna read the question again. I think it's a very important one, and think about it. Thank you. Just a minute.
Does anybody else want to take a stab at that question? I mean, I think the heart of the question.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I think I can perhaps offer a couple of ideas. So, I mean, it's important to. Okay, just. So, indigenous communities live in contexts of extreme violence in the Amazon, of the expansion of the agricultural frontier, dynamics of colonialism, militarization. Modernity in all its versions that arrives to these territories in the form of institutions, in the form of aid, in the form of education as well. So it's a very complex set of issues. It's a very complex context. So of course, indigenous communities are not you know, shielded by these influences. And because those influences also open up different ways of experiencing indigeneity, which is not a static concept. So it's not a question of, it's a question about how to use the different things that go to the communities for the purposes of autonomy. So it's very important to understand that the complexities of colonialism, the complexities of modernity are creating other ways of experiencing local autonomy. And I think it's important that that people understand that technologies are not necessarily bad things. Everybody creates things. Everybody engages in technical work to support different kinds of agendas. So it's a matter of how you channel those things that come to the territories in a way that serves an ethical purpose. In this case, the you know, threatening autonomies.
Thank you. Others, or are there other questions? Anybody in the audience here? If anybody wants to ask a question, you can come up to the computer.
I wanted to say something. If
There
you
are a
can
couple
hear
of
me.
hands up, Brian. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Okay. So can everyone hear me? Yeah. ¿Sí? ¿Me escuchan?
Yes, and you can introduce yourself if you like.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my name is Iván Rosero. Me llamo Iván Rosero. Yo soy colombiano. Mi papá, de hecho, nació en el Putumayo y mi mamá es de Medellín. I also studied with Brian, actually, in UCSD a long time ago now. A ver, lo digo en español. A ver, para mí me parece muy interesante, digamos, tomar el tema desde el punto de vista de crear una universidad. Precisamente, digamos, por esta pregunta que acabamos de abordar ahora, y es porque, digamos, ese marco conceptual trae consigo una cantidad de implicaciones, ¿ya? Entonces, digamos, quiero decirlo solo desde este punto de vista. Si el reto central es de darle a la comunidad, de crear dentro de la comunidad misma una capacidad autónoma de prosperidad y de oportunidad. De hecho, como han dicho ya, por ejemplo, está el problema de que los jóvenes se van en busca de oportunidad. Entonces, eso se relaciona también con lo que quiere decir crear oportunidad, ¿no? ¿Qué es eso hoy en día en Colombia? Especialmente en las comunidades indígenas, especialmente con relación al concepto de universidad y de tecnología, por ejemplo. Porque sí, la tecnología puede ayudarnos, como también puede, de cierta manera, como que enjaularnos. Entonces, me parece eso muy importante y es un reto bastante difícil. Estoy como que bregando aquí de darle vueltas en la cabeza como para ver cómo se abre la conversación para invitar a esta audiencia y, digamos, a otras personas que vean este encuentro para poder contribuir. Por ejemplo, a mí me gustaría contribuir. Yo en este momento estoy en Suiza, donde está Úrsula Biemann, y estudié con Brian, y hablo inglés y soy de Colombia, y también manejo el cuento de las tecnologías digitales. Entonces es como para decir, me gustaría mucho contribuir desde ese punto de vista, teniendo en cuenta que es una tensión, se tiene que manejar esa tensión entre lo que significa brindar esa capacidad tecnológica, por ejemplo, si de eso se trata, tratando a la misma vez de no subvertir o de no, digamos, entrar en conflicto con los intereses mismos de la comunidad. Entonces, ¿cómo hacemos eso? ¿Cómo invitamos a digamos, la diáspora colombiana medio putumaya, medio también paisa, a participar de manera concreta, de manera beneficiosa para ustedes y para la comunidad? Dentro del marco de la universidad, digámoslo así. I can maybe even translate that into English if you guys want, but
I see that Mario Caro has his hand up, but there was a question, somebody posted me privately first that they wanted to ask next. So I'll call on you, Mario, after calling on Christina Hunefeld.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Well, I'm myself a colleague of Brian at UCSD in the history department, and I have been working on the Amazon basin for the last 20 years. So I would be very interested in seeing how much of a comparative and cross-border analysis you are thinking of undertaking or have undertaken, and how far the difficulties in the Colombian experience might be illustrative and illustrated in other parts of the Andean Amazonian basin. And I'm thinking particularly of the initiative in a city like Iquitos, where we have a University de la Amazonia, which has been in existence for a long time, and they have been working together with an entity called the IDZEC, which has done research on indigenous culture, indigenous languages, indigenous technologies, indigenous traditions, over more than 30 years now. So my question for you is also in how far, what is the historical depth of your research? Because I have written a book that is called Crafting Borders in the Andes. And one of the main conclusions is exactly what the Kumeyaay experience tells us, that is the creation of the nation states in the wake of the wars of independence actually fractioned ethnic indigenous territoriality throughout the Andean and Amazonian basin. And then, of course, another historical moment that comes to my mind is the implications of rubber. When we talk Putumayo, you can't forget rubber and all the consequences that were affected on indigenous peoples, their language, their culture, and so on and so forth. So my question is twofold: in how far there is an interest at all in finding out how the experience now in the making in Colombia is actually translatable into other pan-Amazonian environments, and in how far these pan-Amazonian environments are able to inform your own efforts in what you're doing. Thank you very much for all the presentations. And I would also like to hear from our Kumeyaay people. What are your thoughts about what the Mexican-US border has meant for their entire development? Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. And panelists,
Maybe
do you have responses?
Maybe I can just give a thought on this, because can you hear me? Can you hear me? Because we just came out of a meeting. One of the persons in our support group, Santiago del Hierro, is Ecuadorian, and he has built an Amazonian university, not the one in Quito. It was not an indigenous university, a state university. So he knows also the problems in planting such a university in these territories. But what we are talking about now is how this north of Ecuador and the south of Colombia can become one space that we are looking at across the border, because they're both Quechua people. and we hope that we can. They have projects that have more of a direction of a cultural center. We, with the Indigenous University, I think there is a lot of potential to cross that border, and that's definitely what we are aiming at. We also have been, doing research on all other Indigenous universities in Latin America, and of course the Universidad de la Tierra is a very good example. But I also think that these Indigenous cultures are very specific when it comes to their cosmology, to their language, to their territorial history, really. I don't think there was that much rubber trade going on in the part of Putumayo where the Inga were. I think they were further out in the forest. But of course, these colonial impacts were felt, reverberated throughout the region in a big way. But what we are trying to do also with this creation of the audiovisual archive is to record and remember this territorial history, which has never been written down. So it's very easy for the state to claim that this area is empty when there is no one really claiming a history, a continuity in the territory. So we're working on all these different fronts. We are very aware of the issues, and but I thank you for the important comments. It's definitely on our minds. Thank you.
A little bit what also comes to mind is the Dutch initiative in Leticia, no? They did a lot in the 70s and 80s, no? That was very much incorporating everything indigenous, yeah? And doing transborder, and as you probably know, Leticia was a disputed territory, no, between Peru and Colombia, no? In the 1920s and 1930s, so. And it's another evidence, no, of the fractioning of this indigenous territoriality. No? Thank you so much, Ursula. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think we'll end up with Mario Caro's question, because we're really over time now. And I know people are eager to get to lunch.
Well, I don't know if you can hear me, but Brian, thank you so very
Yes.
much, and everyone else who's worked to put this together. I'm incredibly enthusiastic about this. My name is Mario Caro. I am the director of the MFA in Studio Arts here at the Institute of American Indian Arts. For those of you who don't know, we're the only institution that teaches Indigenous arts exclusively. That's our main purpose, and this new MFA is the first one of its kind in the U.S. that offers Indigenous arts training for artists at the graduate level. Some of the questions have to do with these sort of incompatibilities in terms of epistemologies and the kinds of struggles to engage colonial suppression. One of the things that we've developed here that we may be able to contribute is notions of assessment from an Indigenous perspective, right? So in the US, these higher education institutions need to be accredited in order to be able to give out a degree. And we're the same. We're accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, which is one of these bodies that does this. But one of the things that we've contributed to the way in which they do assessment is that we developed a position paper that talks about Indigenous assessment. It's titled, and I can share this with folks, Indigenous Assessment, Cultural Relevancy in Assessment of Student Learning. And so the HLC has adopted our assessment tool that's based on an Indigenous mode of assessment. So I'm not too sure if that's going to be relevant to your situation en Colombia. And I should also say, soy colombiano también, como Iván, y también quiero Estoy muy entusiasmado por este proyecto y quiero ayudar en cualquier manera que pueda. Gracias.
Thanks, Mario. It's great to hear from you again. I know Mario from many years ago and hadn't heard from him in a long time, so great that he was able to join. I want to thank everybody. This has been huge. We will post this. I'm going to have to add introductions back in because we didn't have the recording going on at that point, but we'll post it. Also, if there's anything anybody wants to share, you know, I've archived the list of everybody who was here today, and I can send out via email any links or things if people have questions from that they want to send back out to the group. I'll just create like a short-lived listserv, you know, where where I'll relay things back amongst everybody. Thanks so much. And for people here who are local, down on the 5th floor, we have a lunch with catered by the United Women of East Africa. Should be good food, and I hope that the group up in Zurich get together and go have a good dinner to celebrate. And Wyra, I hope you have people there to celebrate with as well. Thanks so much, and it was great to meet all of you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much.
Oh, wait one second.
Brian, thank you so very much for making this important effort to put this conversation together. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Did you have something, Martha? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
Martha has a comment.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Nomás quería compartir sobre también los problemas que nosotros hemos tenido con la nación Kumeyaay. Son muy similares a los que ellos están pasando. Entonces, ojalá tengamos la oportunidad de platicar después y compartir más nuestras experiencias también. Por ejemplo, cómo hemos tenido a los jóvenes que están en las ciudades con su educación, cómo lo hemos hecho también para que ellos regresen dentro a las comunidades a apoyar. Entonces, ojalá podamos tener otra conversación.
It looks like the closed captioner jumped off. Do you want to say it in English as well?
Okay.
Right.
Hello. I was just saying, like, hopefully we can have another opportunity so we can talk. We have a lot of experience with the Kumeyaay Nation, you know, with the youth moving to the cities and not coming back to the communities. And so we have a lot of experience in that. So we can talk how, you know, all our experience, what we're doing so they can bring the youth back to the communities, engaged in education and helping the communities. And especially because we're on both sides of the border. So, you know, so we're doing different things to promote, you know, so we can be together working for our communities. So yeah, hopefully we can have the opportunity later to you know, keep the conversation, and then whatever we can do to help you guys, we're happy to support you guys. Yeah, Han, thank you.
That's all?
Huh.
Yes. Just to let everybody know, I just put in the chat my email address. I will send that out to everybody as well, so that if you want to follow up, you'll be able to. So, because I have the email address of everybody who attended today. So if you then have questions like Ivan Rosaro is asking about what are the opportunities to collaborate, just send that to my email and I will relay it to the entire group. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you again.